Jeff, we'll get started with the Fast Five. First question, what's your name?
Jeff Siewicki.
And what's your farm's name?
Farm is Vital Mission Farm in South Carolina.
In South Carolina. We just had someone from Charleston, South Carolina on the podcast just the other day.
Oh, is that right?
From Chucktown Acres.
Okay. Yeah. Is that Alex?
Yes, Alex.
Yeah, I know Alex. Yep.
Yeah. In fact, when getting this schedule, I thought, we're going to have two people from South Carolina in just a short span after we'd gone so long without anyone from South Carolina.
Yeah, well, we have to make up for lost time, right?
Exactly. What livestock species do you graze on your farm?
Yeah, so most of my experience when we raise on the farm has been meat birds. We've done a little bit of pork production, but the majority of it has been pasture-raised ducks and turkeys.
Oh, yes. So when we say pasture poultry, we're not even talking chickens. We're talking ducks and turkeys.
Yeah. I started with chickens, just a handful, and I realized that raising ducks was pretty much the same process, and they're just a little bit messier. Yeah, they need a little bit more water, they make a little bit more mess, but essentially the same process. And we found a strong demand, and there's nobody in our area doing ducks. There's a strong demand, particularly in the wholesale market with restaurants and chefs, and so that's kind of the direction we went.
Oh, very good. I look forward to learning more about that as we continue on. You mentioned you started with chickens. What year did you start grazing animals?
Yeah, see, that was early 2017. Just started with a handful of birds, and just wanted to raise food for myself and my family. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and I bought 25 meat chickens, and I thought, hey, this will be fun, raise my own birds and have some good, clean food that I know where it came from. I know how it was raised for my family, and just really loved the whole process. I built a little chicken tractor, and I was moving around the yard every day and just loved the whole process of it. And then started learning about regenerative agriculture, and I started hearing about these people like Joel Salatin and Richard Perkins and these guys that were doing, regenerative livestock, and I just really fell in love with the whole idea. It was growing food that's better for the consumer, better for the soil, better for the environment, better for the animal, and I was like, wow, this makes total sense. It's a win-win-win, and just kind of fell straight in the hole there, I guess, head first.
Right, win-win-win. That's capturing all those wins. Very good. Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing the stories of grass-based livestock producers and exploring regenerative practices that improve the land, animals, and our lives. I'm your host, Gal Hardage, and each week we'll dive into the journeys, challenges, and successes of producers like you, learning from their experiences and inspiring each other to grow and graze better. Whether you're a seasoned grazer or just getting started, this is the place for you. Calling all ranchers, if you're looking to optimize your grazing operation and boost your bottom line, Noble Research Institute can help. The Noble approach to education pairs their own in-field research with the expertise of ranch managers and advisors to find practical solutions to your unique challenges. Now is the time to register for one of their June in-person courses. Noble will be in Kansas City for Noble Profitability Essentials, June 11th through 12th, and in Fredericksburg, Texas for Business of Grazing, June 24th through 26th. Noble Research Institute ensures that every insight they share has been tested in real-world conditions, giving you solutions that work, not just theories. Visit noble.org today to learn more about these courses or to register. For 10 seconds about the farm, I'm really enjoying the Redmond salt with trace minerals we started using a couple months ago. I think the cows are looking good. Conversely, I am not happy with my Energizer. Still having some issues with that I hope to get resolved soon. I may have a cow that's trained to jump the electric fence as well, and that's a problem. Moving on, 10 seconds about the podcast. I've teased you for a couple weeks or a month that we're going to get this Grazing Grass Resources available. We've got it launched. It's available grazinggrassresources.com or from our main website at grazinggrass.com. Click on resources. I'm changing some stuff around, so there's still some broken links, and I'm trying to get everything fixed, but I need your help. This is built for the community, so we need you to add your favorite farms, tools, groups, so we can build a service or a directory that really benefits the community. So add your listing. Let's make this valuable for our community. If our community needs it, let's make it valuable. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk to Jeff. And you mentioned there you got those first chickens as a way to provide food for your family, a healthier food for your family. Why was that a concern to you?
Yeah, I guess I've never been the most health conscious person, but when you have a child on the way, I think it kind of changed my perspective a little bit, I guess. You start looking into these things, you start thinking about, what you're eating and what your kids are going to eat, how they're going to live. And yeah, so I became a lot more aware, a lot more educated on, some of the stuff that goes on in our agricultural system and a lot of the problems with it. And yeah, and so I bought those 25 chickens, raised them, harvested them, gave some to friends and family, and everybody told me this is some of the best chicken I've ever had. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to this whole thing. This is kind of cool. And shortly after that, I told my wife I was going to buy a few more chickens. And she said, okay. I was like, yeah, I just want to get a few more just for us, And I think it was a month later, I had 300 chickens and ducks in the backyard. And she was like, wait a minute, this is more than a couple. And I said, well, we'll see if somebody's interested in purchasing them, And then it kind of it took off from there. Yeah.
Were you raised on a farm?
I was not, no. My uncle has been a farmer his whole life. And then my grandfather, I've had some farming with other family members in my life. So I've been around it a little bit, but I was raised in the suburbs. So I definitely haven't had any firsthand experience in farming.
And with those first chickens, were you in the suburbs when you started raising some chickens?
No, so we had just recently moved out to the country. We got 10 acres out in the country, and so that was the goal.
A lot of chickens on 10 acres.
Yeah, and that was the goal is, okay, can we grow some food for ourselves? So we started with a small garden, and then, got the chickens, and, as they say, chickens are a gateway drug into livestock farming, so that's kind of how it all started and fell in, so,
Yeah, that chicken math will hit hard.
Yes, it does. It does. And they're challenging, right? If anybody who's raised, especially meat birds, it's one thing to do it for yourself, for your family, for fun, for sustenance, on a homesteading level, right? A lot of people do that, and that's fantastic. And I think that's a great way to go, and that was my intention. But when you make that mindset shift, of okay, this is going to be going from just feeding my family to I'm going to make a business out of this. This is going to be a commercial level. It's a completely different ballgame, right? Because now you've got to watch your numbers. You got to make sure your costs are down. You got to make sure you're making profit. You got to make sure you got bills to pay. You got all this weight on your shoulders. You got to find customers. You got to market. And so it really changes the mindset. It becomes a little bit, less fun. There's definitely a lot more stress there, right? But it's been quite the learning curve. I've definitely done a lot of things wrong, but there's a couple things I feel like I've stumbled upon that have gone well. So, in the end, you learn and kind of eventually you get to where you want to go, right? Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but eventually you get there.
Right. You just got to keep moving.
That's right.
And I want to dive more into that first batch of chickens you raised. What kind of chicken tractor did you build? Where did you find the plans for it?
Yeah, the chicken tractor I built was just like a 10 by 10 or might be a 10 by 12 chicken tractor. So it was a wooden frame, and I put PVC over the top with the chicken netting all around it. So it was kind of like the Siewicki style chicken tractors.
Yes.
Similar. It wasn't his exact plans. I don't know where I saw the exact plans. I might have just kind of put together a couple different ideas I saw, and just had PVC hoops, and you could walk into it. It's about 6 foot tall. Had a door. We could walk in there and feed the birds, and I put wheels on the back so it's easy to roll. You could pull it. It's fairly lightweight. You could roll on those wheels. And that's kind of how we started with those tractors, and I built a few more. And then I realized, especially with dogs, they herd really easily.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started experimenting different ideas, different ways we could do this. Started looking at some of the electric netting. The problem with the electric netting is ducks especially are shaped just like they're perfectly shaped to get stuck in those holes in the netting, and especially when they're young,
Yes.
that 2 to 4 or 5 week age. Something would spook them, a hawk, and they would just get stuck. And then you'd be out there just pulling birds out. They're all stuck in the net. Well, about that time, Premier One, this company that makes a lot of the electric netting and stuff, I'm sure you've heard of, they came out with a chick netting. And so what they have is a netting it's the traditional electric netting, but the bottom, I don't know, 8-10 inches or so, has a fine mesh on it.
Oh,
It's like a
yes.
half-inch mesh that chicks won't go through, ducks won't go through. And so that was a game changer for us. So now we can have this electrified netting. We could set it up and move it every day. We didn't have to worry about birds getting stuck in it. And the other thing was our pasture was really rough. We had a section that was all pine forest that we had logged, but they left the stumps there, right? And so it wasn't
Oh,
flat. It
yes.
wasn't even, you couldn't get a chicken tractor in there. And so I was trying to find an alternative where I could rotate these birds through there. And so the netting was working. And so we could set the netting up. We could go around stumps and trees and everything else. And we could make our little paddocks and rotate them that way. And the beautiful thing about that is, I can feed, water, and move 1,000 birds in about a half an hour. So it was incredibly efficient from a time standpoint as well, because at the time I was still working a full-time job while trying to do the farm. And so that system worked really well for us.
I didn't even realize they had that type of netting. I know they have some chicken netting. I I have some goat netting or just netting that I use with goats and sheep that I got from Premier One. And I think I have a reel of chicken netting that I use occasionally, but I didn't realize they had that chick saver netting, which reminds me, if you've ever built rabbit cages in that welded wire,
Mm.
there's some baby saver that kind of does the same principle, but for rabbit cages, the smaller hose at the bottom are much smaller so babies can't get out and fall out of the cage.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
so it's the same concept. So that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that, but that would make a big difference. When you started with those first chickens, did you just go with Cornish cross?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think actually the very first ones I got, I believe, were one of the Rangers, the Red Rangers, and there's
Oh,
another,
yes.
the Freedom Rangers. There's another Ranger, but yeah, we started with those, and I loved them. They seem to graze more. They seem to act a little bit more like a chicken than a Cornish cross. They're a little more active, but they also had more dark meat. So they've got a longer leg,
Oh, yeah.
more meat on the thigh and leg, less meat on the breast compared to a Cornish cross. Um, but yeah, we've done both. We've done Rangers, we've done Cornish cross, but then we pretty much shifted to ducks because we saw a large demand. So we did a lot of ducks, and turkeys has kind of been the majority of what we do.
On the chickens, which would you say was your favorite, the Rangers or the Cornish cross? And did you notice a difference when you ate them?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if I noticed a difference as far as taste or flavor, but you could definitely see the difference in the shape of the bird.
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
It's usually tell the difference. I liked raising the Rangers, but the Cornish cross, I can get a 5 pound carcass weight in 8 weeks, whereas the Rangers would be like a 4 pound carcass in 9 or 10 weeks. So for that reason, it was a lot easier to do Cornish cross.
You start running your numbers on that, and the Cornish cross is just a growing machine. I like the idea of the Rangers, but when you start figuring that additional time, the Cornish cross, it's hard to beat them.
Absolutely, and you know, raising poultry is difficult. There's a lot of challenges. They're so delicate those first couple weeks of life. Even when they get older, you get a freak
Oh, yeah.
cold snap or a rainstorm, and you can lose a lot of birds. I've had days where I lost half my flock, within hours, and everything wants to eat them. All the predators want to eat them, and so
Yes.
I always tell folks, raising poultry, that's a steep learning curve. Doing pastured poultry, you know, let's make it as easy as possible in use. So start with the breed that's kind of, tried and true, proven, that's going to make things as easy as possible in you.
Oh, yes.
And then, and then maybe branch out. Now you see a lot of these producers are doing, these breeds like the American breasts and these other
Oh,
breeds
yeah.
that traditionally, you haven't seen, years ago or becoming very popular. But when you have an American breast that you pay $12 a chick for and you lose 50 of them, that's a big hit.
Oh,
Versus
yes.
a Cornish cross that's $1.50. So
Yeah, so very true there. Now, you mentioned on that first batch you gave some away from friends and then you quickly got in the chicken business. Did you find there was a ready market for them at a price that was sustainable?
yeah, I processed some chickens. I had them in the freezer, and I said, okay, I need to figure out how to sell these. And I didn't have any clue how to sell anything. I had no, experience running a small business or marketing or anything like that. I, went to school for science and biology, had a science background. And I was like, how do I do this? And so, aside from my mother and my aunt who bought a few birds from me, I didn't know how anybody else to sell them to. And they sat in there for several months, and I was like, I gotta do something. And so there was a local restaurant. It was called the Fat Hen. It's not around anymore, but it was a locally owned and operated restaurant, and a really great. It was really renowned, very nice reputation. It was real close to my house, and so I think I called him. I think is what I did. I think I called him, the owner. I'm trying to remember my first communication. I just called him and I said, hey, I'm a farmer and I got some chickens. Would you be interested? And we got to talking, and he was like, yeah, I live really close to you. How about I come out to the farm sometime and check out what you're doing? I said, sure, yeah, come out on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
And he came out, and I showed him what I was doing. I was raising both pasture, and I gave him one to try. And he left with a sample. And I think I called him back, 4 or 5 days later. Hey, did you get a chance to try it? I said, yeah. I said, what'd you think? He said, I'll buy 14 birds from you. And I was blown away. 14 birds is not a lot of money, but for me, it was life changing because here's this chef who is a prominent chef. He's got a booked restaurant, and he's going to buy chicken from me.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
like, oh wow, this works. Somebody's going to buy it. Somebody likes it. Somebody who's got a great reputation wants this. I was like, oh my god. And so then it was like, wow, I can make this. I can make this work. And so the strategy became those first years, the first 3-4 years. That's pretty much all we did was we focused strictly on wholesale. And so over the years we worked with probably over 75, 80 chefs and restaurants, and that was the bulk of our business for the most part up until COVID, and then things kind of pivoted at that point.
Oh, yeah. How did you get into that many restaurants?
Boots on the ground. Literally, it was just Charleston is a very much a food scene. At that time, there's a chef called Sean Barak, and he is pretty world renowned at this point. But he was really putting Charleston on the map, and with several other guys. Had a lot of national recognition. He was really famous for his restaurants, his real farm to table, working with a lot of local farmers.
Oh, yes.
He moved away and he's been doing his thing in Nashville for some time. But Charleston is very much a food destination. So there's a big restaurant scene, a lot of restaurants here, and so I just started going to them. And I would just pack a cooler full of a bunch of birds, and I would just walk into the restaurant, say, hey, talk to your chef, and I got a cooler with frozen chicken, and people were just
Yes.
looking at me. But I found that if you just kind of just walk past that hostess at the hostess stand or the assistant manager that's there, and you just act like you
Yes.
belong there, and like, hey, who are you? What are you doing? I just gotta go talk to the chef. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and they just let you go. If you act like
Oh,
you
yes.
kind of know what you're doing, and I would just find him and said, hey, and he kind of look at me like, who are you? And I'm like, I got a chicken. Try it. Let me know what you think. Call me. Kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and that's really all it was. It's just letting them try it, and then I would check in with them and go from there.
You mentioned about COVID and how that affected your business, and we all went through COVID, and I can only imagine how that affected it. Before COVID, had you already started ducks and turkeys in addition to chickens, or was that after COVID?
Yeah, so we quickly went from chicken to turkey because a lot of these chefs I was talking to, several reasons. One, there were several chicken producers in the area, and so some of them already had a chicken farmer.
Right.
Two, no one was doing ducks, so it's wide open, and they wanted them. They were like, "Oh, I'd love to get some fresh local duck." The other thing is, like I said, the process for raising a duck is very similar to a chicken. It's a little bit more expensive because ducklings are a little more, you pay a little more for ducklings than chickens.
Yes.
And the processing is more difficult. But aside from that, it's essentially the same thing. And I found, but the ironic thing is, people will pay twice as much for a duck than they will a chicken. It's kind of the same thing. They just I guess they see more value in it. And so we were able to make that work, especially if we could get a nice large bird, we could make that work. One of the biggest things we would get from a chef that I would talk to would be the price. That's the biggest thing. They're used to getting it for X. I'm selling it for Y. I can't afford this. And for a lot of them, they couldn't afford it. And that was a big thing. But what I found was after talking with them about it was I said, I kind of would present it as, do you want to have the same thing everybody else has, all these other restaurants have?
Oh,
and they would say, no, they want to be the best, right? They want to have packed tables every night. They want to have the best reviews. They have a little bit of an ego too, right? These chefs, especially these executive chefs, they want to get all the accolades and win all the awards, right? And have their name out there. And I said, okay, well, if you want the best dishes, wouldn't you agree that starts with the best ingredients? And they would say, yes. I said, okay. I'd say you don't want to buy the same food from Cisco or US Foods. You need to start with the best ingredients. The other thing we would do is, because a lot of times they're used to getting smaller birds, is I would raise as large a bird as I could get. And so when they would fart it out, instead of having 2 breasts, I would say these are really extra large breasts. You can actually cut these in fourths and get 4 breasts instead of 2, 4 dishes instead of 2. And so now they can make the numbers work because they're getting 4 breast entrees instead of 2 breast entrees. And they can essentially pay double and get a better product. That helps the numbers as well.
So the chefs kind of drove your adoption of raising ducks. And you mentioned turkeys. Is that how you got into turkeys as well?
Yeah, well, turkeys were more of a Thanksgiving thing is kind of how we started.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just seasonal Thanksgiving. And then we sell a few for Christmas. But when we started doing more direct consumer sales, which is around the COVID time frame, because when COVID hit, all the restaurants just quit ordering, right? We weren't going out to eat.
Right.
And I had a freezer full of birds. I was like, what do I do? And so that's when we started doing some farmers markets and started focusing more on direct consumer. But I was doing the turkeys and we're doing ducks. And I said, well, why don't we do turkeys year round? And instead of selling whole turkeys, most people aren't buying them year round, a whole turkey anyway. How can we make this a year-round thing? And we started doing other turkey products. So we would part them out. We'd sell turkey parts, legs, thighs, breast. We also do ground turkey, and we have 4 different flavors of turkey sausage, breakfast sausage, and links, and all these different things. And so that made it a viable product that we could sell 12 months out of the year.
With your turkeys, ducks, and chickens, were you doing all on-farm processing for them?
We started out that way. It was a challenge. So we started that way. I mean, even with equipment, and I remember the first time we did ducks. So it was myself and I hired 8 people. So it was 9 of us, and I had a big commercial chicken plucker. I had a machine, I had a scalder, so I had all the equipment, and it still took us. I think we worked 10 hours straight, and we did like 70 birds. And it was brutal, nonstop. And I was like, and here I am, I'm doing, batches of at the time I was doing 400 birds at a time. I was like, there's no way I can process these. And that was our first time, right? We would have gotten much. I'm sure we got more efficiency as we got more practice. But I just said, I'm gonna take these to somebody else. I don't want to do this. This is a lot of work and it's a lot of headache. And I'll just pay somebody to do it. And the other advantage of taking it to a USDA processor is, now we can do parts. Now we can do value-added products. Now we can ship across state lines, which we wouldn't have been able to do those things if we had processed on farm. So.
Was it easy to locate a USDA-inspected processor for ducks?
No. So, with poultry, a lot of four-legged animals, you can use state, custom exempt processing. poultry has to be USDA federally inspected. There's roughly one USDA processor per state on average.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
states zero, some states may have one or two, but about one per state in the country that'll work with smaller producers. Uh, and so they're very few and far between. And the processor we were working with wasn't doing a great job. They did a great job on chickens and turkeys, but ducks were a completely different animal. It's a waterproof chicken with 3 times the number of feathers, and so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very difficult to get a nice, clean bird with a good presentation. We were having issues where a lot of birds were coming back with a lot of feathers on them. I was losing restaurants that like, we can't buy these. I was losing product, and so I called all over the place to find somebody that could process these ducks for me, and I found a place in Kentucky, and it was about a 12-hour drive from where I was. And so that's what I would do is for a long time I would load up 400 birds on a trailer, drive 12 hours, let them process all day. I'd spend the night and then pick them up the next morning fresh and drive back 12 hours straight to the night. So that's what we did for many years. Yeah. So that's how few processors there were,
Oh, yeah.
especially ones that could do waterfowl and do it well. So, yeah.
Right, yeah. Now, you said you did that for a number of years. Do you have a closer processor now?
Yeah. Yeah. So several more have opened up. They're much closer to us that we use now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very good. With the turkeys and the ducks, and you're going through restaurants, COVID hits. And like you mentioned a while ago, restaurants were shut down. How did you pivot at that time? I know you mentioned earlier you started going to some farmers markets, but how did you get through that period?
Yeah, we've had to shift our business model like 3 times. So that was one shift. So we went from wholesale to consumer around COVID. It was a challenge, because I was selling whole birds, whole ducks.
Oh, yeah.
And when I went to the farmer's market, I said, I got whole ducks for sale. As you can imagine, not a lot of people were looking to buy a whole duck. It is not an everyday
Right.
staple food like chicken or pork or beef would be. And, some people would buy, but it'd be, kind of on occasion, once a month or something.
Oh, right.
And especially buying a whole bird. And so I was like, man, this is tough. We got to do something different. And so we started porting out our birds, and I found that I was selling more product if I would break it down. We had some people that buy whole birds because that was the most economical route. But when we broke it down to legs, thighs, wings, breast, we would sell more. People were more interested in that. They're more familiar with that. They knew how to cook that.
Oh, yes.
And I could sell it for more money. So when you add up the total value of all the parts, we were making more profit. So like, okay, this is cool. And then I kind of went down the road of, okay, how can we squeeze the most juice out this lemon? When we're looking at these parts, I was like, okay, there's got to be a way we can just make, like, how can we make more profit? At the time, I had a lot of the wings were backing up. I had duck wings,
yes.
and if you ever had duck wing, there's not a lot of meat on it. It's just real lean, especially when you cook it, they get kind of tough and chewy, and there's not a whole lot of meat, not as much as a chicken wing would have.
Yes.
And so people weren't really interested in them. And I was selling them, I think, around for $1 a piece ish. And I couldn't sell them. I just had a whole bunch of them in the freezer, and I was like, I gotta figure something out. Even I put them on sale, I wasn't selling a lot of them. And so what I did was I took those duck wings that I was selling that I couldn't sell for $1 a piece. I put them in a dehydrator, and we dehydrated them. And I put them in a bag and marked them as pet treats.
Oh, yes.
And I sold them for $3 a piece. So I increased from $1 a piece to $3 a piece, and I'm selling out of them. I'm like, whoa, okay, they were onto something here. This is cool.
Right, yes.
People were buying them for the dogs for 3 times more. Okay, so we started. So then they really got the wheels turning. Okay, how can I make more money off the parts I have, and raise fewer animals, and make more profit, and make the numbers work? And so I started thinking, okay, what else can we do? And so we did the same thing with every piece of that bird. We did the legs, and we used a commercial kitchen, and we make duck confit that's seasoned and flavored and pre-cooked. And we packaged that and sell duck confit. We took the breast, and we did cured meats and sausages and prosciutto. We took the carcasses, the frames that are left after you pour it out, and we grind those. We make dog food. And we also make bone broth, the bones. So all these pieces, I essentially went from making $10 net profit per bird when I was selling to restaurants, wholesale. My net would be about $10 a bird, to making $70 per bird net profit
Oh, wow.
when we did all these value added products.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm making 7 times the amount of money per bird, and which meant I could raise fewer birds and still make the same, revenue. And it was a lot
Right.
easier than raising thousands and thousands of birds and trying to wholesale them all, because they need more infrastructure, more land, more freezer space. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So so that was a big pivotal moment when we started doing direct consumer and trying to figure that whole market out and how to sell direct consumer and make it work. And the farmers markets were great. We were doing at our peak, I think we were doing 6 or 7 markets a week in multiple cities all around. It would drive as far as 2 hours south, 2 hours north, 2 hours to the west. And we do all these different markets every week, and they were great. But, and I love farmers markets. I'm a big proponent of it. You learn so much about your customer, what they like, what they don't like. You know what's selling. You know what's, okay, these are moving, but these aren't selling. Maybe I need to adjust my pricing here. Maybe there's something about the product they don't like. You just get so much feedback about what customers are into, why they're buying it, recipes that we're making with it, that it's invaluable. And I think without that information, I never would have been able to be successful selling online. And so that was where we pivoted again, was online sales. Because
Before
go ahead.
before we jump into your online marketing, I want to jump back real quick on your ducks and turkeys. What breeds are you using for your ducks and turkeys? This is just a tangent that I always have to know is what breed. And then we'll go back to your online marketing.
Yeah. Jumbo pecans is what we like. There's a hybrid, a Grimald hybrid pecan, which is pretty good. A lot of producers use those for the ducks, but I just found that the jumbos got just a little bit larger and a little bit shorter time frame, which I really appreciated, especially with the wholesale market. We wanted a large bird. And for turkeys, we did they're all broad-breasted turkeys, so we did the broad-breasted whites and we did the broad-breasted bronze.
Oh, yes. You don't have a preference on color there?
The whites make a better presentation. As the
Yes.
bronze, you'll see a little bit of feathering. The dark feather will really show up on the carcass if it's not real clean. But as far as yield, the whites were probably a little bit slightly better yield. But I also noticed that the whites got hit by predators a lot more often than the bronze did.
Oh, yeah. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for going on that tangent, Jeff. So you're going to these farmer markets. What led you to doing the online marketing?
Yes, the farmers markets were great. It was doing really well. We had a lot of customers, we got a lot of feedback, but farmers markets were just inconsistent. So many of them closed during the wintertime, or we would have weeks where we'd have a lot of rain. And if it rains, people don't show up. And then you have summertime, and if it was sunny, people would show up because they'd be at the beach or on the boat. And so it was always you never knew. You could have a banger day and you could have a horrible day, and it was really no rhyme or reason. It was hard to predict. The sales were up and down. You're doing this revenue roller coaster. Like I mentioned, we were doing markets in different cities, several hours away from where I live. So I would hire people to do that market in that city, and they would quit, and so then I had to find a new person, go out there, train them, and it was just this kind of revolving door. And I wanted to do online sales. I knew other people were doing it, having some success with it. And I had a website, I had an online store for many years, and it was just struggling. I didn't really know how to make the online sales work, and tried for a long time to do it. And then until we finally started to figure out a few things that started to click, that started to work with the online store.
Let's dive deeper into that online marketing, and that's going to be our overgrazing topic for today. At Redmond, we know that you thrive when your animals do. That's why it's essential to fill the gaps in your herd's nutrition with the minerals that they need. Made by nature, our ancient mineral salt and conditioner clay are the catalyst in optimizing the nutrients your animals get from their forage. Unaltered and unrefined, our minerals have the natural balance and proportion that your animals prefer. This gives your herd the ability to naturally regulate their mineral consumption as they graze. Our minerals won't just help you improve the health of your animals, but will also help you naturally build soil fertility so you can grow more nutrient-dense pasture year after year. Nourish your animals, your soil, and your life with Redmond. Learn more at redmondagriculture.com. The practice that you're doing on your operation that we talk deeper about. I don't know how I usually say that. Whatever. We're going to dive deeper into it. That's what I usually say. Dive deeper into it. For the online marketing, so what did you do so that your online marketing became a success?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's any one thing I could say. I wish it was that simple. I wish I could be like, oh, just do this. But I feel like and I feel like that's why it was so challenging, is because there's so many moving parts. That's why I'm a big proponent of farmers to do like farmers markets, because you get to learn a lot of those pieces. If I set up an online store and I never went to a farmer's market and I say, okay, people buy my stuff, even if I have everything set up perfectly and I'm not getting sales, I don't know why, right? There's so many variables. I don't know if it's the price. I don't know if it's my messaging. I don't know if it's my emails. I don't know if it's the website. I just don't know. The delivery price is too high. Like, there's so many variables, and you can basically, the farmer's market simplifies things where you don't have all these variables. You have people that walk up to you and say, I want to buy stuff. You go, okay, here you go. You eliminate all those variables, and you don't get that feedback online. It's just silence, right? And you're hoping for a sale, and then every now and then you get one. You're like, but you don't know why they bought it. Okay, I want to get more of these sales, there's a lot of things that I think we did differently. We'll just start, give you a background. At first I kind of built my own website, and it wasn't doing much in sales. So I hired somebody, paid them a lot of money to build me a new website. Oh, this is going to be great. And still didn't do a lot of sales. So I went with a third-party company, one of these farm-to-door companies, not going to say them, and they did my online store, had our products listed, still didn't do any sales. It was a great website, great online store, had all our products there, but there was nobody going to the store and buying, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know how to market it. So trying to think of the easiest way to break this down. The way I look at online marketing, there's many different facets. It's not a silver bullet. It's more like 1,000 golden BBs to make it work.
Yes.
But the way, I guess the easiest way to break it down is I look at it, there's basically two things to marketing online that you have to do. The first is lead generation, meaning you have to get eyeballs to your store, your product, right? You can have the best product in the world. You could be selling Wagyu beef for $1 a pound, and it'd be the best Wagyu beef in the world, but if nobody knows about it, nobody knows how to get your website, you're not going to get any sales, right?
Exactly.
Websites are like the stars in the galaxy. There's 100 billion of them out there, right? So how do you get people to yours? So you have to get leads, eyeballs, and ideally you need to capture that email address so that you can continue to communicate with that person. Is
that something you did at the farmers market, is capture email addresses?
Yes, that's something we did early on, which I'm thankful we did, because that really gave us a good basis, a good seed, essentially, right, of customers that I could continue to market to.
Right.
So we always have a list at the farmers market. Today still we still do a few farmers markets, and we have a list, and people can write down their name, email, phone number. So capturing an email where you continue to speak with them, continue to market to them, and so they're not lost forever. Because a lot of farmers will say, let's say they're posting on social media, they'll say, hey, check out our website, check out our online store. If that person doesn't go to that website, online store, and they don't purchase at that moment, which 99% of them do not, they're usually gone forever. They might come back and visit again if they're really so engrossed and excited, a few months down the road, but chances are they might be gone for it. They might not ever visit your website again.
Right.
When you think about the average conversion of an online store is around anywhere from 0.2 to maybe 1% on the high end. That's a lot of people have to visit that just to get one sale. So, and I'll tell more about that, but you have to get a lot of eyeballs to it to make it work. So, lead generation is the first thing you need to do. So you have to have leads, eyeballs, and there's multiple ways we do that, which I can go into in a second, more detail. But the second thing we need is once we get those leads, those eyeballs, we need to be able to convert them. So I look at marketing as a two-phase thing. You need to have leads, lead generation, and you need to have conversions. Two different things. Those are two separate things. And some farms are missing both. Some are just missing one or the other. But you need to be able to convert them into a buyer. Meaning when you get that eyeball, you get that email address, you need to be able to convert them into a buyer. And then we take it a step further than that with our online stores. Okay, we don't just want buyers, we want repeat buyers.
Oh, yes.
So we have a subscription model that gives us repeat sales month over month. And it's my belief that when you're looking at, after trying many different types of online stores and many different types of online sales, I tried, different bundles. We tried, buy enough chicken for a year. We tried subscribe and save, where if you subscribe to this, instead of buying it one time, if you subscribe every month, you save 10%. And all of these were just kind of okay. Like, we got a few sales, but nothing was really taking off. And until we did our new subscription model, that's when things changed for us.
So how's your new subscription model different than those models?
Yeah. So with all the websites and software and platforms that I used, none of them had really any custom features that I could do a customized subscription. What I did was I said, we got to figure out a way to make this work. So I emailed and talked to all the customers I could at the farmer's market. I sent emails out to our list. I said, have you ever done a subscription? Have you ever done a CSA for a local farm?
Oh,
before?
yes.
If so, what did you like about it? If not, and if you quit, why did you quit? What would you like to see in it? What are the big deciding factors? What's a make or break it for you, right? And so I just asked it. I found out what it is they wanted. And I did a lot of this research to figure out, okay, I'm going to deliver. And I found out what they wanted. And I delivered that. And the result was we essentially added $30,000 to our bottom line in 5 days when we launched it.
Oh, wow.
Which was 10 times more than we did over the previous 12 months on our online store.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So it worked. And what I found was through that process, I'll tell you what customers told what we did. They told us that they wanted to be able to pay month to month. So they didn't want it like a traditional like vegetable CSA. They didn't want to pay 6 months or a year in advance, right? So we charged them month to month. They can quit any time.
Oh, yes.
They wanted to be able to pause or cancel if they're out of town, so give them that ability, right? They wanted customization. They wanted control. So a lot of, particularly when I'm talking about like vegetable CSAs, are usually farmer's choice, right? You sign up for this vegetable CSA,
right?
And they've got nothing but carrots and potatoes, and so you get a box full of carrots and 100 pounds of beets. Like, what am I doing with all these beets? And so a lot of people quit because of that. They don't have any choice of what goes in the box. So we give them full choice customization, and this is something that none of the other platforms that I looked at had. And we offered variety. So instead of just offering our pasture-raised chicken, duck, turkey, we've partnered with other local farms. So we offer pork, we offer beef, vegetables, bread, honey, all these different things, right? And they can choose if they order a box. So we have our box, we have a size, they choose their size. So small, medium, large. And that box gets them a number of items that they get to select. So, for example, our medium box is $200. They can get 12 credits, essentially 12 items. And if they want 12 ribeyes, they can get 12 ribeyes, right? If they want ribeye steak, bread, and eggs, they can get that, right? And they can choose whatever they want, and we deliver that for them. And and the last piece, there's one more thing. I'm sorry, remember. There's one more thing customers really wanted. They wanted convenience.
Oh, convenient.
And our subscription model is hyper local. We only do it for people within a 20-mile radius, and we deliver it to their house once a month.
Oh, yes. So you're not mailing this. You have a truck and you're delivering it to them.
Correct. And the reason for that is when you look at shipping, shipping's expensive, right? You've got to pay the shipping fee. You've got to pay for the box, the liner, the dry ice, the ice packs, and that's a lot of money.
Right.
I can put together a box, and what we essentially do is we charge $10 for shipping, or for home delivery, I should say. Sorry, not shipping. $10 for home delivery. We bake that into our price, so we don't charge them. We say it's included, but we just kind of bake that $10 fee into our price rate. I pay a delivery driver that $10 for every delivery he takes. So basically, it's not costing me anything delivered to their house. They drop that box of that subscription box they get on their doorstep once a month. And so the fulfillment's easy. It's one day a month, right? I don't have to go markets all weekend long. I can essentially disappear from the farm as long as people are kind of looking after the livestock and stuff. I can disappear as long as I'm available that one day a month. I'm good. I'm not fulfilling orders and shipping stuff out and doing all this other stuff. I don't have to pay for dry ice and styrofoam coolers. I mean, it works. It works well.
With it being a monthly subscription like that, is that where the majority of your sales are coming from? Or are you still doing some farmers markets or some one-off sales?
Yeah, majority of our sales are through the subscription model. We still keep a couple farmers markets that we do locally. We've done forever, and they're close by. But we've quit all those markets we're doing that were multiple-hour drives. Majority of our sales come through the subscription model. It's ironic because those first 3 to 4 years, we were pretty much doing like 99% wholesale. Now we've completely flip-flopped. We're doing like 99% retail, direct consumer. Like 1% wholesale. It's kind of interesting how it's our sales models completely flip around.
With the customization that the consumer has available, do you ever run into problems about having the right supply of what the customers are needing or wanting?
Yeah, so that's the nice thing about the way we set it up is, we have kind of our core items that we know we're pretty much always going to have in stock that stay consistent for months and months. But I can adjust, what those selections are each month, right? So if I run out of bacon, I can just take bacon off the list. If I add another producer, like we had a cheese producer who's doing really good goat cheese, we added them in, but they didn't have milk year round, so we had these awesome goat cheeses for like 3 months, and then we just took them off the list. So it's easy to manipulate our offerings depending on inventory, which is nice. If I'm running out of something, I just take it off the list. If I'm getting heavy on something, we keep it on the list. We could even do a sale or something like that. But
is that something the consumer logs into a website, or are they doing this by email? How is that managed for them to make those selections?
Yeah. So our system. So basically, I mentioned that I couldn't find a platform that did this.
Right.
I essentially built our own platform. It's called the 10X Farm Marketing app, and it's basically an all-inclusive farm marketing platform. So basically, it's one platform that has our website, our online store, takes payments, does our subscription model, custom subscription model, is a full CRM, so we can keep in touch with our customers through email, has full email marketing capability, professional email marketing capability. So it does everything on one place that I didn't build it. I'm not that smart. Somebody else builds it, but I basically customize it specifically for farmers. And so we use that, and we also use that same platform we set up for other farmers as well. But the way that customers sign up for their box is they get an email. It says, hey, it's that time of the month. We need to get your preferences in, what you want in your box. We have, and the thing that makes this platform powerful is we have a bunch of automation. So when they click that link and they fill out, it takes them to a form, and they put in their name and their phone number and email, and it says, okay, and then we have all of our selection listed. They basically check off what they want on that form. When they complete that, they get a follow-up email that says, thanks for completing your form. Your delivery will be on this day at this time. I get a notification saying they completed the form.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's easy for me. I can just run a report of all of our orders, and it's real easy for me to print off a pick list and a pack list for all of our customers. So it makes fulfillment really easy when we go to fulfill all those orders. But essentially they're just filling out a form that lists, the items they want, where they check off the items they want.
Oh, very good.
The other thing I was going to mention is, I started talking about there's two aspects of farm marketing, right? So the first is lead generation. We need to get eyeballs to our website. The second is conversions. Yes. And I didn't quite finish talking about conversions, but conversions is essentially the message you're putting out there. And and a conversion can be capturing an email address. Conversion can be a purchase, whatever you want it to be. But the model that we follow is we take leads and we send them to a special landing page just to get an email address. That's our only focus. We want an email address. That's all we want. We're not asking for a purchase because the chances of somebody buying from you just heard about you is pretty slim. We just want to get an email address. We then do email marketing, and we tell them who we are, what we do, why we do it, and what makes our product different from the grocery store, and what the benefits are of our product, recipes of our products, behind the scenes, stuff like that, right? Through our email marketing. So they get to know, like, and trust us. Sometimes we'll send them like a special promotional email. Here's our most popular product. Check it out. A special coupon, something of that nature. But we want to make sure that if we're asking for an email address, this is very key. A lot of farmers don't do this. See this on a lot of websites. Make sure you're giving something in return for that email. Don't ask somebody to sign up for your newsletter. People get 100 emails a day. They don't want another newsletter. As much as they love your farm, they don't need another newsletter, right? Give them something in exchange for them giving you their personal information. So that can be a list of all your favorite recipes. That can be a 20% off coupon. Sky's the limit. How to cut up a whole chicken. How to defrost meat. Whatever it is, give them something. And if it's like a digital product, that's great, right? Because that's easy for you to send them.
Right.
So get something in return for that email. Talk about who you are, what you do, why it's special, and present your product as a solution to that customer. You're not just selling food; you're selling a solution, right? You're offering healthy, nutrient-dense meat for a mom of 4 that wants to feed her family good, clean food, right? You're offering high protein food to somebody who lifts weights and is like a big CrossFit guy, right? Whatever it is, you're offering a solution to that person, and so you need to present your product as that solution. And so your conversion piece is made up of your message, your email marketing, what you're saying, your website, and your social media, and how you present your product as a solution and an offer or a solution to their problem, basically.
So when you get an email in, they get that free product, whatever you're offering. Do you have a sequence that walks them through kind of that getting to know you process? And then once they're finished with that process, you send out, is it weekly emails or similar?
Yeah, so email marketing is still by far our biggest sales channel as far as return. We send a warm-up sequence, usually 4 to 5 emails when they sign up for an email list that answers those questions: who we are, what we do, why we do it, what makes it special, right?
Oh, yeah.
After they get that series of 4 or 5 emails, sometimes we'll send them like some promotional emails. Oh, here's our best seller. Just trying to get them to try our product for the first time. Here's a discount code. Here's our most popular product. Something like that, just for them to try it. But I'm writing a weekly email to my list. I'm telling them, and it's not always, hey, buy this or buy that. It's here's a new recipe we just did. Here's some baby animals on the farm. Here's
Oh, yes.
behind the scenes. Here's how we process whatever it is, just to keep in touch, and they learn a little more about what you do. So
Right.
once
And you're
weekly
building
email.
that relationship with
Yeah.
them.
So then when I do have something like this big subscription offer that we launched, they already know who we are, what we do, and they're ready to purchase. And so when I go, hey, we got this new subscription offer we just launched, you can sign up for this 7-day window only, people jump on it. And we
Oh,
tell them
yes.
how great it is, all the benefits they're going to get, all the food that's included, and they're excited about it. When we tell them you can choose what you want, it's monthly, you can cancel anytime, we deliver it to your house, and they love it. So,
With doing that, I think you said you do the home delivery within 20 miles of your location. Has there been any problem with that radius? Have you thought about expanding it? What I'm thinking of it, did you get someone that's 20 miles one way and there's no one else around them? How has that worked for you?
yeah. So when we tried doing home delivery in the past, it didn't work because it was always we would deliver every week, and we might get a handful of orders, and one was 20 miles that way, one was 20 miles that way, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
didn't work. It was such a waste of time to spend all day driving back and forth and delivering these packages. But when we launched our subscription model, we were able to get a whole bunch of orders, and it's all done on one day. Then it makes it worth our time to do those deliveries. It makes it worth my time to pay somebody because they're not just taking one or two orders. They're taking 12 or more, right? And
Oh,
so it
right,
makes
yeah.
it worth their time to go do that delivery, and that's why it worked when it didn't before, when it kind of failed before.
Does the customer have like a time frame when you'll be there, or are you just dropping it off on the porch? What's the process for that actual delivery to get it in the hands of the customer?
Yeah, so we tell them it's going to be delivered. We do the first Sunday of every month. So today was our Sunday. It was
Oh,
our CSA delivery day. So we do this the first Sunday of every month. They always know when it's going to be, and we tell them it's going to be there between 11 and 5.
oh yeah.
If they're not, and we drop it on the porch. We don't knock on the door, wait for them to show up. All this stuff. I'll meet you at the park at 5 o'clock. No, I mean we're not going
Right.
through all that. We drop it on your porch. Hopefully you're home. We'll ring the doorbell. And we're leaving it. We're back in the car going. We also tell them, because we do a lot of protein, frozen meat, we tell them to leave a cooler with ice on their front porch if they can. But just as an
Oh, yeah.
insurance, we package all of our frozen items in a cooler bag, like one of those foil cooler bags,
Yes.
and we'll throw a couple ice packs in there and seal it. So it'll be good for an afternoon. If they happen to be gone for the day, it'll be okay.
Right. Do you have those costs built in, or are they encouraged to return those items so you can reuse them?
Some of them do, but I think the bags we're getting are like $2 a piece. And the ice packs are maybe $1 or two. So it's not a big cost really.
Not a huge cost there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very interesting how you pivoted multiple times in your farming career and how you have this model going, which sounds really nice and something I aspire to do in the future.
Yeah, I made my mind up that we tried doing the online sales thing for a long time, and I really decided or learned, I guess, through trial and error, a lot of error, that there's really only two ways to make it successful online. You have to either sell a very large ticket item, right? So you're selling
yeah.
a half or quarter beef, a half hog, something like that, where you're getting $500 plus in a single order. Because if somebody orders from you once or twice a year, it's worth it, right? You're still getting a good return on that item.
Right.
But that doesn't work for chicken farmers, right? Or somebody who's selling, pork sausage and ribs, that for like $25. It's fine to sell, per item, individual items on your online store. But when you're just getting a few orders here and there, like, so somebody would go to our website and they, let's say their average order value was $40, right? And they visit us 3 times a year. So we made $120. Three months, they ordered $40 from us. And I said, well, how can we take these 80% of our customers that are ordering just a couple of times a year and get them to order every month? And so instead of them paying us $120 a year because they had $40 orders, we're now getting like $150 order, $200 orders from the subscription model every single month. And so I'm
Oh,
a
yeah.
firm believer that there's really only two ways to make online sales work. It's either you're selling very expensive items like a side of beef, or you have a subscription model where you're getting that revenue month after month after month. Just relying on one-off sales here and there, a few orders, low value items, it just didn't work.
Yeah. And that makes sense as I'm sitting here listening to it. I probably couldn't have verbalized that before, but it does make sense as you're saying that.
Yeah, and the other thing is we also do a lot of advertising. So we do our lead generation in several different ways. We do social media organically. We do social media with paid advertising. So we're driving traffic to our website. And we do partnerships with other local farms, other local businesses. The funny thing about paid advertising is it costs me to get a local engaged customer between $2 and $4 to get an email address from a local engaged customer that's interested in local food. Is about what it costs me. What we've seen is with our subscription model, we get about $4, roughly the same as what it costs us, $4 per email subscriber per month.
Oh, yes.
So essentially, it costs me $4, and I'm getting a $4 return in 30 days with our subscription model. And so
Oh, yeah.
essentially, I am making that advertising cost back in 30 days, which means that I'm getting that return every single month, which means I can essentially scale this subscription model as high as I want because I'm getting my money back every 30 days. So if I
Right.
have, and we've seen this with all the farmers that we set this subscription model up with, they're all getting roughly. It's just weird, but they're all getting roughly that $4 return, and so now we can put a pin in that. Okay, we know we're getting a $4 return. Um, okay, let's just spend more money on ads, get more email addresses, and we can grow this thing as large as we want to.
Right. Yeah. Is there, when you think about farmers getting started, what would you say is their minimum that they should be able to offer for a subscription model to get started? And when I'm thinking about that, if they're just raising poultry, is chicken enough? I know you work with other local farms, so you have more things in there. How many things do they need available to really get it going?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a hard number, but I don't. I
Okay.
think it would be very hard if you just had a few items.
Right.
Um, I think it would be tough. I think that's one of the key factors is we have so much variety. The other benefit to utilizing these other farms is, especially in the beginning, they really helped us kind of get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
Because when I approached them and I said, I'm doing this subscription model thing, I'd love to buy your product. Can I buy your product? They said, yes, you can buy my product. They're not going to argue with that. And I said, awesome. We're going to give you free marketing, free advertising. We have their farm name and logo on the website.
Yes.
Their label is on the product when we give it to the customer. So they're getting a lot of business and marketing from this. And I tell them that. I say, all that I ask from you is, can you help us spread the word? Right? And so when we launched
Oh,
this thing,
yes.
we asked them, will you help us share the word, get as many people excited about this as possible? And we're going to buy your product. And they said, yeah, sure. So they posted on social media. They sent an email out to the email list. So they really helped us market this thing too when we launched it. And so that helped a lot
Oh,
too.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you have to have a good number of products. If I just had chicken, I doubt that it would be that successful. Um, I think you could be successful if you had, kind of all the proteins, chicken, beef, pork, especially if you had multiple items, sausages and different, value-added products and stuff. I think you could be
Right.
successful. But yeah, I don't know if I could have done it with just poultry if it would have been worked as well.
Right. Yeah. Very good, Jeff. I've really enjoyed talking to you about marketing, about your journey. Before we go to famous for, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think that's about it. If people are interested in like learning more about that and want help, Regenerative Success is our website. So regenerativesuccess.com. They can check out what we do. We're happy to help you out. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Cal. This is good.
Very good. Let's transition to famous for questions. For today's sponsor, we want to talk about the Grazing Grass Resources. We just launched it, and it is built by grazers for grazers. It's a listing, it's a directory It's your go-to spot to find farms, consultants, books, podcasts, tools, and more, all focused on grass-based and regenerative livestock production. Even better, you can submit your own listing there for free. That way we keep it practical, useful, and a community. Whether you've got a service to share, a favorite Facebook group, or a farm folks should know about, head over and add it. You can check it out at grazinggrassresources.com or just at our main website, grazinggrass.com, and click on resources. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I look forward to seeing your listing there. Same 4 questions we ask of all of our guests. Our first question, what's your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
Oh, yeah. Well, we don't do grazing in the sense that, you would if you had cattle.
Right.
But we do rotate our animals outside on pasture and that sort of thing. I really like, I will give you 2. One is Pasture Poultry Profits is what I read in Joel Salatin right about the time I started. And that really got me kind of hooked on and excited about farming and that, hey, I can make a go of this thing. And the second one I really liked was Regenerative Agriculture by Richard Perkins. His Regenerative Agriculture book I thought was really good. It has a lot of different enterprises and how to be successful with them in there. And he outlines a lot of numbers and costs and that sort of thing. So I thought that was pretty good. So I like both of those.
Oh, very good. Excellent resources. Our second question, what's your favorite tool for the farm?
It's got to be a 4-wheeler. I don't own a tractor, never have. There's many times I wish I had one, but
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we get by with just a wagon full behind a 4-wheeler. We can haul over feed buckets, all over equipment that way. So yeah, the 4-wheeler's key to moving things, moving birds, moving equipment. Yeah.
They can really be handy.
Yeah.
Our third question, what would you tell someone just getting started?
Ooh. Yeah, I would say don't jump into online sales right away. Start with the farmer's market or start with the on-farm stand, someplace where you can interact with your customers one-on-one to really understand what your customer values, what they want, what they like, what they don't like, so you can utilize that information and then you'll know what to write in your social media, what to write in your emails, because you'll be getting that information from your customer.
Oh,
And that'll really help. Thinking about the end goal, marketing, how you're going to sell your product, who you're going to sell it to is key. I think a lot of us farmers, I was in this boat. I just was so excited about farming and being outside with animals, and you don't think once you start a farm, you got a business and you got to market. You got to tell people what you do, and you got to be able to sell your product. Otherwise, you're not going to be farming for long, right? And that's kind of the hardest piece, and the piece that I think that I overlooked for a long time and didn't understand how difficult that was going to be. You never stop marketing. If we stop, we see customers drop off. They move away and they forget about us. They go somewhere else. So it's the day you start farming is the day if you're selling direct to consumer, you got to start marketing and essentially never stop, right? So
right,
just something I would say to keep in mind.
Yep. And lastly, where can others find out more about you?
Yeah, regenerativesuccess.com is our website, and we've got lots of. I send a lot. If you want to join my newsletter, I send lots of free resources, tons of stuff when it comes to how to post on social media, how to do email marketing, how to run ads, all these kinds of things. So yeah, definitely join our newsletter and check out what we have. We have a Facebook group, Regenerative Success Facebook group, lots of free information there.
Very good. And Jeff, we'll put those in our show notes so our listeners are able to find those and click on them and get there quickly. Look. And I said lastly, but we have one more question. Do you have a question before I tried to wrap it all up together? Do you have a question for me before we wrap this up?
Yeah. So my question for you would be, drives you at this stage to get up in the morning and to keep going through and pushing what you're doing? What's your big, I guess, your main motivational factor?
There's 2 aspects of that. Motivation only lasts so long. It's really discipline that comes into play. And so when I say that, there may be 3 points to it. One is I block out time each week that's just for the podcast. And I try to maintain that schedule. And I actually have too much time blocked out for it right now, which causes me not to be as effective as I am when I'm constrained on time. When I say I'm doing all of it during this time, it actually works better than if I say, oh, I can do it that day or this day. Then I get kind of lazy. So that discipline and having it scheduled really helps with that motivation to do it every day. But, and I think that's really important, but part of the motivation is the benefit I get from every conversation I have here. Every conversation energizes me, encourages, or helps to encourage me to do more. And I hear things I've heard before. I hear things I haven't heard. And it energizes me. It's like going to a conference, you get that feedback, and you come home, you're all motivated. So it helps with my motivation. It's like small injections of it every podcast. And I hope that's doing that for the listener. And that's where my other motivation is. I think as we incorporate more regenerative practices in, it just benefits the earth, it benefits you from the food you're eating to the lower amount of chemicals coming into your body, it benefits the soil, it benefits your animals. It is a lot of times a lower cost option than some of those if you're using some high input things. So my third step of that is that motivation to help the listener take their next step. And I know what I'm saying is probably not going to get them to that next step. But what I'm hoping is they hear something in your story and they're like, oh, that I identify with that person. And they did it. I can do it. And we just need them to take that next step. And the big worry I have, especially when we get someone on here that's been doing this for 50 years and they're sharing their story, they're in a different spot in their journey than you are. For you, you're in a different spot than someone just getting started. And we have to remember not to compare our journeys at the same time, because that's you're in a totally different part of your journey. But the goal is we help that person take that next step. So those are big three. Being disciplined helps me. The motivation that I get benefit from it very selfishly. I just happen to record these conversations and share. And then the hope and the desire that the listener gains something and is able to take that next step keeps me going each day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I say the same thing. When we get interns or people that seasonal workers out on the farm and everything, and a lot of them are brand new to farming and they've never done it before. And I talk to them, and they're like, "Well, have you ever tried this? Why don't you try it? Why do you do it like that? Why don't you do it like this?" And I'm like, I never thought about that. That's a good idea, And so I learned a lot from them too, even though they may not have any farming experience. It's always good to see a fresh, perspective.
It is. It is. I completely agree. Jeff, really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today.
All right. Thanks a lot, Cal.
I was so excited to get Jeff on here. Been watching what he's been doing at Regenerative Success and his focus on marketing and helping farmers. I want to get him on here and share about what he's doing. If you're thinking, hey, I need to find out more information, I encourage you to go visit his website. I think he gave some great ideas in that direct to consumer using subscriptions. One thing he said that I think he's probably 100% right, but I didn't really want to hear. I, at some point, would like to start selling direct to consumer. I haven't. I have no big desire to do farmers markets. Just seems like a lot of time. But as he mentioned, farmers markets, you're interacting directly with your customer or potential customer. And there's no better way to get direct feedback than that farmer's market. At least that's the way it is in my head. That's what Jeff was saying. If you have something different, I'm going to post a couple of polls or questions over on the Grazing Grass community concerning farmer's market. And if you do direct consumer, I'd love to hear your answers, your thoughts on it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Grazing Grass Podcast, where we bring you stories and insights into grass-based livestock production. If you're new here, we've got something just for you. Our new listener resource guide is packed with everything you need to get started on your listening journey with the Grazing Grass Podcast. Gives you more information about the podcast, about myself, and next steps. You can grab your free copy at grazinggrass.com/guide. Don't miss out. And hey, do you have a grazing story to share? We're always looking for passionate producers to feature on the show. Whether you're just starting out or have years of experience, your story matters. Head over to grazinggrass.com/guest to learn more and apply to be a guest. We'd love to share your journey with our growing community of grazers. Until next time, keep on grazing grass.